Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Our community needs Henry Cuellar.
He kept our businesses open during the pandemic and reduced taxes.
We received millions of dollars to protect our families and borders.
He wrote the program that guaranteed health care for millions of Texas children.
Because of him, I have the opportunity to study at Laredo College.
Henry helps us with prescriptions and Social Security benefits. If we lose him in Congress, we lose everything.
I'm Henry Cuellar, and I'm going to continue fighting for you and your family, and I approve this message.
Back at you in Gloves Off. I'm here with Javier Mendoza, and we're touching base on some issues that occurred with UISD and a bunch of other things that are going on in our community. How are we doing today, Javier?
Good.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Same here.
Good to see you. And there's a lot of issues going on all over the place, but this one in particular is one that you're very familiar with.
Yeah.
Explain to us what it is and how it started and so on and so forth.
It's the UISD contract to disinfect the schools. When COVID hit, the anxiety and the fear that people had, people were willing to pay thousands to get disinfecting services. I've been in the business I own a janitorial business for the past 23 years.
Sure.
So when all this happened, I researched to see what was the best product, especially for my clients, and I had several schools and the university. And so you don't want to use something that's going to be harsh, So then I found some good products. I found the equipment and all that, and so we started doing that. But I never charged a lot of money. I was always the lowest one. But I guess people they have this false sense of assurance by paying more, so they think if they pay more,
Sure, they're getting a better
deal, or it's really going to work by paying more.
Correct.
And so I think UISD saw this, or the Mr. Rodriguez, the trustee, Rick. And so he started a business. A lot of people started these, when COVID hit. And so I saw a bunch of people doing it. A lot of them were doing it illegally. They were using stuff that they were not supposed to. One company was using stuff from Laredo. Some people were using harsh chemicals where they had to put the PPE, the personal protective equipment, like the masks, the white suits, and all that. And when I started advertising, I said, let me offer good pricing, offer good services, actual stuff that really works, and at affordable prices. So the people who really called my company were people who couldn't afford to get their house disinfected, even though they really needed it. And so I actually went in and did disinfecting for several houses, very low-income houses. I remember one mobile home on the west side. The father had gone COVID and his son was living with him, and they didn't really have any money. I'm like, don't worry about it. I just charged him $20. And he's like, he had 40, and I'm like, just give me half. And he's like, you know what? And when my dad comes back, I'm gonna hire you again. And he did, and for that amount. So I saw the people, how scared they were, and I saw it. So when UISD came out, like a year and a half later, almost 2 years later after COVID hit, for a bid that nobody was really soliciting anymore. Nobody was doing that anymore because, one, the resources are out there, the equipment, the solution, the disinfecting. There's now multiple disinfectants you can buy. So when that came out, UISD, they called me and they said, hey, you want to bid? I'm like, yeah, I'll bid. They asked for 5 references. The RFP said that it was only be as needed. So you don't know if they're going to call you or not,
Sure.
So they might call you once, but it's going to be a hassle if they call you once or twice, because one, nobody really wants to work anymore right now. 2, you need to have the disinfecting solution available, because they said that they'll call you. They would like at least a couple hours for you to get there and disinfect. So they're asking for all these things, but in reality, I thought to myself, I'm like, you know what? They're not going to hire anybody because it's going to be too expensive. It does not justify for them to pay the amount that they were paying, no matter who got the contract. No matter if it was the lowest bidder, the highest bidder, it didn't matter. No one is doing that. So I thought, okay, they're going to see it. They're probably going to, think it's too much. That way they can pay overtime to the janitors. I honestly thought that, Paul. I honestly thought that they were going to do that. They never called me. I'm like, okay, they're good. Nobody got the contract. I remember watching on KGNS one time, there was some outbreaks, and I saw the janitors. Actually, KGNS saw filmed the janitors going into Nye Elementary, and I'm like, oh, okay, look, they're actually hired. So I never followed up, and so then it starts becoming a scandal. That it was a trustee that got the contract, and not only did he get the contract, they've been awarding him schools every week. Even though COVID was no longer an issue, he was still getting these calls. And it got to a point where, the last that I know, he's gotten paid close to $500,000, close to $500,000. When they could have just paid the janitors. They already have the equipment, they already have the solution. Why not pay the janitors the overtime?
Exactly.
Why not pay them?
You said a bunch of things in there with COVID that really struck home, and you see it everywhere else.
Yeah.
Number one is people don't want to work.
Yeah.
The employment rate, people don't want to work. They're
Yeah.
getting, a lot of these folks are getting more from the government than they are actually getting paid. So it's very hard for businesses to come up and say, you know what, I'm going to put this down or I'm going to start this business, or I'm going to do this contract, when the people really don't want to work.
Yeah.
There's nobody working. And people say there's a lot of jobs. Yes, there is a lot of jobs, but folks there's a large majority of folks that basically are just with their hand out, waiting for the government to give them some money. And
especially with the child tax credit.
Absolutely.
They increased it to $300 per kid per month, for 6 months it was, or something like that. And so that takes the incentive away from someone actually working.
Absolutely.
And so that was the issue, Paul. They brought it up to my attention, and to me, it's just like, okay, I thought it was federal funds that they were mismanaging. They were spending the CARES Act money, but we went to the school board meeting, and they said that no, it's not federal funds; that it's actually taxpayer money. So if the janitors are at the front line, Paul, they've been on the front line since the beginning. When the schools reopened and everything. Why punish them? Why make them work, at the same rate when they could have been paid overtime? And the schools, the school district would have saved a couple $100,000 at least if they would have done that. Or why didn't they offer one of the janitors to say, hey, who wants to do this? We'll pay you $500 and you go and disinfect. We'll give you the chemical, we'll give you the machine. You've already been trained, you already have it, you've already been doing it. So if there's an outbreak and you want to make an extra $500, we'll give it to you. Give a stipend to do that.
Sure.
Because it's allowable, and especially if it's general fund money, it's the tax money. But they didn't do that. They said, hey, let's just give it to Mr. Rodriguez, the trustee, and we'll give him, we'll give him as much money, for example, to disinfect United High School. I think they paid him like $4,000. To do that. And so then the issues, the issues, the current superintendent, Mr. Gonzalez, says, well, he was the lowest bidder. And I understand that. But if you give me a bottle of water, one is spring water and one is tap water, but it's both water. And you say, well, it's the same thing. No, it's not. Spring water is more expensive. Go to Sam's and you're going to see the price difference. What chemical was he using? What equipment was he using? What employees was he using? Does that justify the low bid? And that is the question, because my disinfectant, I've been using it at schools and at the university. Different schools, 7 schools and a university.
Yeah.
And so where was he using his? And the video that he shows on Facebook where someone posted, he was in full protection. Because obviously the solution that they were using was not safe. If you can't breathe it, then you need masks. You need to cover yourself. The solution that I use, you don't need anything. You can even spray a kitchen and you don't have to wash anything off. That's how safe it is. And a COVID kill, if I'm not mistaken, when it first came out, they were saying because COVID was so new, they didn't know, but the EPA and the CDC said, hey, you know what? COVID, if it can kill norovirus, it can kill COVID. And so my product killed it in 4 minutes. Now, after all the data and everything, they're saying that it kills it in about a minute now, or less. Mm-hmm. So my product is one of the top products.
Absolutely.
And so you cannot compare and say, well, it's because he's the lowest bidder. No, well, one, service is different. You go to one restaurant and you
Sure.
go to a different restaurant, it's not the same thing. Just because they're cheaper. Well, no, you know what? You're saying that you want to do things for the kids to protect them. So then justify it. How do we know he was even doing the job right? What janitors, what staff was opening the schools for him, staying there, making sure he was even doing the correct job? I mean, if there was someone opening the door for him, why wasn't that person disinfecting? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of questions, and I'm not saying Mr. Rodriguez was doing anything wrong. I'm not even implying that. I'm not saying any of that. But he's a board of trustee. He needs to be held accountable. He needs to be held at a higher standard. That's all I'm asking. How do we know he was doing things the right way? How do we know that he was applying the solution for the amount of time? Because if you look at Lysol, because people were buying Lysol left and right thinking this is a magical thing. You need to keep Lysol wet on a surface for 10 minutes for it to kill COVID. So it has to stay wet. So if you spray Lysol and it dries up in 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, it's not going to kill COVID. But a lot of people were believing, we sprayed Lysol, so we're good. It's the same thing with that disinfectant. I don't know what he was using. He was probably using the same one that the schools were using, that UISD was using, because he's a school board trustee, so he knows what they're using. So he probably just did that. And if that's the case, he was using ones that you mix. So there could be human error. We don't do that. If they really wanted to go with the lowest bid, and they would have told me, hey, we just want to go with the lowest bid. Anything that kills anything, like, don't worry about it. Even if it ruins the surfaces, even though it ruins the computers, the computers that the students use, it doesn't matter. Okay, then I use a hydrogen peroxide disinfectant with 30-second kill time, and I would have done it a lot cheaper. And that one I just mix. But the RFP didn't ask for that. The RFP was so vague, like it was made for somebody. And that is the reason why I have questions. I'm not alleging that someone gave a kickback, or it appears that way. It may appear that way, because why would someone get $500,000 when COVID isn't even a threat anymore?
Well, there's the point that many see is a trustee giving the contract to the trustee and all that stuff. There's a lot of conflicts of interest to that. Yeah. I don't know if there's any stipulations within UISD that you can do that, and if there is, well, then they have to be changed. I do not know it. I haven't seen.
Well, it's legal what they did, because they had a quorum, but either people didn't show, like the people who didn't vote either did not go or abstained. So only 2 people were only voted, and those 2 people voted in favor of awarding him the contract. And my company we came in second in pricing, so then we were the second vendor. To be honest with you, Paul, I didn't think they were going to award it. I never thought in a million years they were going to award the contract. Not even at the lower price. It just didn't make sense. It didn't make financial sense, and it didn't make sense why they would do that to the janitors that have been on the front lines when they should be getting paid more money. If the money was there, they should have been getting paid. And then for them to turn around, and then they say, well, it's because we don't have that much staff. Obviously, you treat them like shit. You put them in the front lines, and then you don't want to pay them, but instead you want to pay a trustee $500,000? That doesn't make sense, Paul. It doesn't make sense. And I hope the janitors, I hope every support staff sees that and votes him out. Because it's crazy what they did.
There's a lot of issues with UISD. And, I know, and just like you and I, we know a lot of those board members, and we know them on a personal basis. There was only one that stood up for an issue that came up 2 weeks ago. Everybody else just left. And if you're in the habit of not being around to vote because you just want a title and you want to have that power of pushing people around, you have to step down. You have not been to these meetings. You're always absent. Step down. You get removed. We have to have term limits, and we have to have some kind of clause in there that if you miss 3 consecutive meetings or 2 consecutive meetings, guess what? You're out. Enough's enough.
Yeah.
And people say, no, but why don't we put 4 meetings? No, how about just put 2 meetings? 2 consecutive meetings that you don't show up. On your third one, you don't show up. Guess what? You're out. Automatically, you're out. You get removed from the board. And, then somebody else gets appointed or gets put in and go on along with the business. Why? Because we have a lot of dangerous situations that can be dangerous.
Well, they were
saying, it's sad.
Well, they were saying that when I went to the last school board meeting, that the meeting where they voted for this contract, they changed the date. They already had it set for a certain date, and they changed it. And they don't understand why. And it was to make sure that 2 other board members would not go. Mr. Castillo says that he was ready to go when it was originally set, but they just decided to move it. They didn't ask any of the trustees. They just moved the date. Like if they were planning on awarding this contract, and they wanted to make sure that at least there was going to be a majority for that. That's what it appears like. That you get the impression, especially after all the corruption that we've seen here in Laredo. We see contracts that are awarded based on who they are and not on qualifications. We see that all the time. And so the reason I bring it up and the reason I'm here is shouldn't we hold our elected officials to a higher standard? I mean, even if he didn't do anything wrong, even if he did the job correctly, even if he did everything that he was supposed to do, he should be still held at a higher standard and prove to us that he did what he said he was going to do and what he was awarded to do. I mean, we need that. I think that's what I think as a community, we should demand that.
The more and more you look at it, all our public officials have lied the majority of them have lied to the people that voted them in. Or they go in there and all of a sudden they do something else. They go against what they said. They are constantly condemning, making fun of, criticizing the current ones in there about the things that they do. They're calling them corrupt and shenanigans and all this other nice little words that go on in there, right? And all of a sudden, when they get in there, they start doing exactly the same thing. So we're in a very rough situation here in Laredo.
Yeah.
Not only the city, in the school districts, and we see it every time. We saw it with the last school board meeting that nobody showed up. Very, very, very issues about what we should teach our kids and not teach kids, and so on and so forth, which is going to raise a lot of people around here. It's going to raise Cain. But we need people in there that are there to do what they were elected to do. If you don't want it, let's get you out. Let's remove you, and let's put somebody else in. If you're in there to give your friends contracts, that's a different story, because that's what it appears like.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it literally appears like. And if you go against the grain, they'll send the police officers to harass your kids.
Yeah.
They'll do it like, oh, this and that. No, we didn't do that, but they'll do the same thing. It's like if you're dealing with a mob.
Yeah.
Okay, and they have their police thugs to do it. They have UISD has their police thugs, and LISD has their police thugs, and the college has the same one. So if you go against the grain and your son or your daughter are in high school, they'll start harassing them. They'll start doing whatever they want, and that's the ugly part. They're acting like the mob, and unfortunately, it's rising up to a head. You got 2 trains running. You got we the people, and you got them, and it's going to collide, and it's not going to be it's going to be not a pretty collision.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm talking about. That they will threaten you. They will threaten your kids that are in there. They'll start harassing your kids that are in there.
For your contracts, if you have a company, and
they'll come after you, and they'll come after your business. They'll come after everything else. They'll start doing their cancellation. It's been going on for a long time. What you see in the media nationwide, Laredo perfected that 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're still doing it now. They're just getting better at it. About 15 years ago, they perfected it.
Yeah.
And they're getting it better.
They're just getting more brazen. They're getting more confident, and like nothing's gonna happen to them, so they're doing it more and more.
Absolutely. Now, before it used to happen in closed doors, and it'll happen to one person here and another person there. Now it's happening to many other people, and people are standing up and saying, I'm not going to take this.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's what it is. I want to thank you for coming up here and standing up, because it's you were there. You know what it is because you placed a bid on it.
Yeah.
It's not like somebody else saying, and
I worked on the bid. I'm the one who came up with the numbers for my company.
And it's not like somebody saying, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. You know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And a lot of people do not know exactly what's out there.
Yeah.
We need folks like you to run. We need good folks to start standing up and start running. And folks out there, right now we're in a runoff election. And it's a very crucial one, really.
Yeah.
We have a crucial...
We need Henry Cuellar.
We need Henry Cuellar in there more than ever. And not saying anything wrong with the Republican candidates. Let's say the Republicans get nominated and Henry loses. There's no way they're going to get there. The numbers aren't there. Okay, so the Republicans really have to start stepping up to the ballpark as well. And it's going to be a while. But, the Republicans at least they're in there fighting right now more than ever than before. But right now, at this point in time, Laredo needs help, and Henry's the only one that's really been helping Laredo. He's been bringing in a lot of money.
And he's one of the most powerful Latinos in Congress. I mean, we should be proud of that. We shouldn't be ashamed. We shouldn't be saying, hey, let's give someone else an opportunity, or let's change. Let's not destroy the Latino community just because of some social issue, because you want to be woke or you want to be, this far left, and join this mob mentality. That's how the black community was destroyed. Let's not do that to the Latinos, and it's unfortunate that people want that type of power, and Congressman Cuellar brings money to Laredo, brings money to the district. He fights for our values, and he fights for the district, and because of that, he works on both sides.
Absolutely.
Because it doesn't matter who the president is. I don't care who the president is. We need money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we're paying taxes, he better bring back the money.
And then they put it to you this way: there's a lot of non-profits out there. There's a lot of non-profits that help the community with drug abuse and counseling. He's bringing them. Who funds them? He brings in the money to help them out. Even though they have grant writers and everything, he's out there busting his rear end for that.
And that's going to stop if he loses.
Yeah, exactly right. And if he loses, but Jessica Cisneros won't bring that money here, nor Ms. Whitten, nor Ms. Garcia. They won't bring it. They don't have, because they're not part of the appropriations committee. And people do not know that, and people might hate families and hate this and that, whatever you want to call it. But let's call it, at the end of the day, the person that brought money here to Laredo in Laredo's time of need, which has been the last 2 years with the COVID, was Congressman Henry Cuellar, by far. He brought money to the city for small businesses, whatever the city did to swindaddle that one.
And also help for rent and mortgage payments.
Absolutely.
The city still, has their office there in the metro, the transit, on the third floor or second floor, where you can go apply for financial help, for your rent or whatever. If you got COVID and stuff like that, I don't know exactly what the
criteria is.
Yeah, but they're still there. They still have money, and so that's because of Congressman Cuellar.
But going back to the point of voting, go out and exercise your right to vote. Okay? Because if you sit down at home and complain, you're still going to be complaining if you didn't vote afterward.
Yeah.
So go out there and vote. Right now is a time in need. Javier, thank you again for coming out and explaining to us what's going on, because there's a lot of things on Facebook land that is not correct.
Yeah.
But thank you for bringing it out and bringing it forth.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
No, anytime, and I hope you run soon.
We'll see.
Folks, until next time, you stay at peace.
Thanks.
Today, in America, more than 5.5 million men, women, and children train in a martial art regularly. Buitron Academy has been serving Laredo for over 30 years now. Our adult classes are geared for producing the best in you, teaching you street-ready techniques, With the arts of Savate and Kinpo, you'll learn the traditions of these sciences of combat as passed down professor to student.
Hello, my name is Jaime Garcia. I started Savate when I was 17 or 18. I'd like to say it was because I was in search of knowledge, but truth be told, I joined Savate because I got my ass kicked in a bar. My mouth was writing checks, my ass couldn't cash cash, so I figured I should learn how to fight. I was looking through the paper, trying to find someone that I could really learn something from, and I came across Buitron's school. Even though it was on the other side of town for me, I wanted to go someplace where I wasn't going to be wasting my time. So I came by. He was nice enough to take me on as a student, and I started learning. I went all the way up until I think it was white glove, pretty consistently. As a matter of fact, I think I even failed one glove because one year I wasn't prepared enough. I believe it was my green glove. So I had to take my green glove twice, but definitely didn't stop me from coming back because that was definitely my fault. But I kept coming back year after year, and I loved it. I had to stop when I was about 25, 26. I had to go to school, I had to go off to college, you know. But I never forgot what I learned here, and I promised myself I would always come back. I just had to get some life stuff done. So I went to school. So that definitely not only gave me the confidence to do so many other things in my life, but it also got me out of a lot of trouble that I admittedly got myself into. But definitely one of the most important things I ever learned in my life was how to fight. I finally came back, even though I live in Austin, which is a good 3.5 hours away. I still make the time to come every month to come and learn because it's one of the best decisions I ever made in my life, one of the best things I ever did. And I believe it gives a person something that the society is very much missing these days, which is a discipline and a drive to go forward, drive to keep doing what you're doing. And I believe in it so much, I'm just waiting for my kids to get old enough to hopefully start doing it themselves. And yeah, best thing I ever did in my life, and I wouldn't change it.
Come train at the best kept secret of Laredo. Give us a call for your free evaluation at 956-401-4868 or check out our website at savate.biz. Follow us on YouTube and Facebook.